Let me see if I can just turn it on. Give us a second. I believe it's good.
Okay, so we're talking about the beast, and we're talking about the first time that the Bible goes into any explanation describing the beast. And what we're looking at in Revelation 13 uh, is two beasts. One is the beast that will claim to be God and go into the rebuilt temple in Jerusalem, and the world will worship and wonder at. The other beast is typically referred to as the Antichrist, although he's never called the Antichrist. He's just called the second beast. So Satan is standing on the seashore, and he sees the first beast rising up out of the sea. Now, whether this is the Sea of the Mediterranean or whether this is just the Sea of humanity, the Bible uses that word to explain both possible conditions. But it's describing this beast as having 10 horns and 7 heads, and on his horns were 10 diadems. Well, this is described in the book of Hosea as a satanic kingdom, and in Daniel we see these same beasts. And so the beast has formed a confederacy of Arab nations in the region of Israel, and he comes to power through these nations. And the beast which I saw was like a leopard, and his feet were like those of a bear, and his mouth like the mouth of a lion. And so it's a monstrous creation with great power. And the dragon gave him his power and his throne and great authority. And I saw one of his heads as if it had been slain, and his fatal wound was healed. And here we see the beast who's going to go into the temple and claim to be God and demand worship. We see him trying to imitate the death and resurrection of Christ. He's going to ascribe this great miracle to himself. And it says the whole land was amazed and followed after the beast. They worshiped the dragon because he gave his authority to the beast. And so Satan gets what he always wanted, is worship. Remember when he tempted Christ in the wilderness, he wanted Christ to worship him. And here he gives his authority to the beast, and it causes the whole world to worship the beast and the dragon. And they said, who is like the beast, and who is able to wage war with him? There was given to him a mouth speaking arrogant words and blasphemies, and authority to act for 42 months. So the last period of Daniel's 70 weeks is 7 years. And Revelation and Daniel speak of 3.5 years, of 42 months, of 1,260 days, and of a time, and times, and half a time. All of those representing 3.5 years. And so when the beast becomes worshipped by the masses is in the beginning of the last 7 years. And he does it through cunning, wiles, deception, feigned kindness. But then once the 3.5-year mark comes, he throws off all the pretense, and he goes about to slay the woman, which is Israel, and the remnant of her people. This is Revelation 13. In the previous chapter, in Revelation 12, it talks about the woman fleeing into the wilderness with the remnant. So here in verse 13, we see the beast shaking off all deception and using his great wickedness to destroy and slay Jewish people. Now, remember, there's several types of Jews here. There's the remnant, a small group, a remnant that's faithful and remains true to the Lord and does not take the mark of the beast and are sealed by God and survive. There's also the 144,000 Jewish overcomers, the preachers from the 12 tribes of Israel that go throughout preaching the Messiah is coming, and many of them are slain. John, when he sees this prophecy from God concerning the unveiling of the day of the Lord, he sees these dead souls of many of these martyrs. Okay, so in verse 5, there was given to him a mouth speaking arrogant words and blasphemies, and authority to act for 42 months was given to him. And he opened his mouth in blasphemies against God, to blaspheme God's name and his tabernacle, that is, those who dwell in heaven. And so now we're getting to see a bit of distinction with final events on the earth, this present earth, and what's going to happen to it, and the kingdom that's going to be set up here, and then the interaction of those that are in heaven and the bearing and relationship that they will have to certain events that take place on the earth. Verse 7, it was also given to him, to the beast, to make war with the saints and to overcome them. And authority over every tribe and people and tongue and nation was given to him. All who dwell on in the land will worship him. Everyone whose name has not been written from the foundation of the world. And we won't spend much time on it, but here we see this phrase, this wonderful and unique phrase, the foundation of the world. The correct translation of that phrase is the overthrow of the world. And remember, for example, in the book of Ephesians, it said there's a company of believers, referred to as the body of Christ, who were chosen by God before the overthrow of the world, before the destruction of that original earth. Here, it's those whose name has not been written since the overthrow of the world in the book of life. And so here we have two distinct periods of time that are talked about. A time before the overthrow of the original earth, on which Satan dwelt and was evidently a ruler. And then after the destruction of that original earth, we have events that have taken place and revealed to us by God. So we have before the overthrow and since the overthrow. And so this is important. There's two other places it talks about before the overthrow of the world. In 1 Peter, Peter said that Jesus Christ was the Lamb slain before the overthrow of the world. John chapter 17 said that Christ was loved by the Father before the overthrow of the world. And then we have many places that it speaks of since or after the overthrow of the world. Okay, so let's see, verse 8. All who dwell on the earth will worship him, the beast, whose name has not been written from the foundation of the world in the book of life of the Lamb who was slain. If anyone has an ear, let him hear. If anyone is destined for captivity, to captivity he will go. If anyone kills with the sword he must be killed. Here is the perseverance and the faith of the saints. And we're not going to turn to it because our time's almost gone. But in the book of Jeremiah, it talks about captivity going into captivity. He that lives by the sword must die by the sword, and the perseverance of the saints. It explains that in the context of the Lord working in the last days. Also remember that when Christ died and was dead for 3 days and 3 nights, when he rose from the dead, he went and preached to the captives in prison. And it says he led captivity at the point of a spear. And so those were fallen angels who had left their original habitation, and God has consigned them to prison. And Christ went and delivered a message to them after his resurrection. Now let's look at, what do we have time-wise? 5
2
minutes?
minutes left.
5 minutes?
2 minutes.
2 minutes. Okay, well, just very briefly then, we've seen the most descriptive analysis in Revelation, except for Revelation 20. Revelation 20 tells us that the beast, the one that comes up out of the sea, and the beast, the one that comes out from the land, who we would refer to as an antichrist, they were both thrown into the lake of fire at the beginning of the millennium. And when they were thrown into the lake of fire, Revelation chapter 20, they perish. They're destroyed in that fire. That is the second death. The lake of fire is not a torture chamber that lasts forever. It's a place of ending, all-consuming ending. And so the lake of fire is where the beasts, the 2 beasts of Revelation 13, are thrown at the beginning of the millennium. At the end of the millennium, when Satan is released from the prison, the abyss, and he goes to make war with, at the end of the millennial period, he's destroyed and he's cast into the lake of fire, along with death and hell. That's when death and hell cease to exist, with the same time that Satan is destroyed there. Okay.
That's all right. I'm just going to copy these final 2 points in that you were covering. God destroys the rebels also with fire from heaven.
That's both at the end, the beginning of the millennium and the end of the millennium. There's 2 fires that destroy his enemies.
Okay. Guys, I appreciate you joining. Richard, thank you for presenting that. I know that was last minute, and we had some tech issues, which is just par for the course with our channel and lives. But guys, I appreciate you joining. We will try to come back here tomorrow and do some more, hopefully before the day gets away from us. So thank you, Rumble and YouTube on both sides here, and you guys have a blessed evening, and we will chat with you soon. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.